Hi, everybody. It's Jean Humbrecht with Humbrecht Law, criminal and traffic defense attorney in Manassas, Virginia. Welcome to my weekly local business spotlight. Today, I am joined by a repeat guest, my friend Greg Mills from American Drengr Krav Maga. Greg actually won a really amazing award recently, the best of Prince William County, the best martial arts instructor in the county in 2023. So that is a huge accomplishment. Congratulations to you, Greg, for that. And
Thank you.
I've actually seen Greg in action, so it's a well-deserved award. So I'm
Very
going to tell
kind.
you a little bit about American Drengr Krav Maga, and then I'll turn it over to Greg. American Drengr Krav Maga is the fastest growing self defense facility in Manassas. Focusing on real world self defense for kids and adults, the school doesn't shy away from the realities of real world defense while making a point to develop character that is an asset to the community. So, with that introduction, Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can tell everybody a little bit about your studio and what Krav Maga is if they don't know.
Sure. Yeah. So I think first things to start off with what Krav Maga is. So Krav Maga is an Israeli self defense art. It is there we go. It's based on real world self defense. So I started martial arts when I was 4 years old. I was a little terror of a child through my adolescence and everything beyond that. um, and I started traditional martial arts where you're learning the forms and you're learning a lot of phenomenal physical exertion, but it was stuck in tradition. And so what Krav Maga is based it off of the Israeli defense forces. What they learn over there is it's about real world, right? If I'm learning some crazy like technique, right, where things are perfect, right, that's not how real life violence works. And so our Krav Maga is doing that, and we do our own little twists and stuff. I have things from multiple instructors that I influence that I teach. I'm always trying to learn and trying to pass that knowledge on to my instructors that are underneath me and their other owners that we run the business with. And so the idea is really just looking at what is really happening when people are faced with violence in real life, right? It's stressful. Your mind starts to shut down. You get panicked and all that, and how to develop that. And this is the same thing that kids are experiencing in with bullying in school. I was crazily bullied when I was a kid. And I solved a lot of problems the right way, some of them a lot more probably the wrong way, and learned a lot of lessons from that. And so being able to address that, but also looking at reality of what we have today. And I don't know if you guys know Yesley Vega, but she just posted a thing about some of the statistics in our county that we've had about a 100% increase in aggravated assault in Prince William County. Just about 70% increase in motor vehicle theft, and we just did a carjacking defense seminar about 2 months ago. There's about 40% increase in thefts. Then about 300% attack on law enforcement officers. So our underpaid law enforcement and understaffed law enforcement are getting attacked even more, right? And since about 2020 to 2022, there's been about a 70% increase in violent crime in our community. And those are things that learning how to do a form and learn how to do a fancy flash kick or something, which is absolutely an acrobatic and athletic skill, that's not going to help the average person day to day. And so what we're talking about is, someone busts into your house in the middle of the night, right? Someone's holding up a convenience store, wrecking the place. Do you let them just do their own thing, or do you have to defend yourself? What if you were put in that situation and trying to deal with the legalities and the ethical aspects of all of that, and work that right into our kids program as well as our adult program? And that's our school in a nutshell. We also have a lot of fun, so there's that too.
Oh, well, that's a lot of information. So you mentioned the carjacking seminar. I know I attended one of these when it was on Zoom way back or I'm pretty sure I did way back in the beginning of COVID. First question is, are these classes online or in person or both?
So they're in person.
Okay.
COVID was I was working for a different company back then, and I spearheaded an online training thing. And online training, the aspect of YouTube and all that, and There's a lot of fantastic information and instruction out there, but nothing beats
Hmm.
being in person, right?
Hmm.
I tell my students, you guys are more than welcome to use my car when you come for a carjacking seminar, but you're not driving my car. You got to know how to move in your car. You got to know how to move and see all the different angles and how I drive a Jeep, and so it's kind of a little more bumpy, right? Right. Some people have nice, much more expensive cars that cushion you a lot more comfortable, and it takes a lot more effort to maneuver in those sometimes. So that's the kind of thing we do there. But then of course, our classes Monday through Saturday. We have classes in our school going just nonstop.
Hmm. So, what are the types of classes that people can take, adults and kids?
Absolutely. So start with kids. We start as young as 3. We kind of audition like at 2.5. Like if not all kids are the same. That's an important aspect for our school. I just finished a junior instructor certification for my staff. I certified them. We spent a whole weekend training, and then I evaluate the way they teach. They put together a class and teach a class and give them feedbacks, and constantly build upon that. And we recognize that every kid's going to be a little bit different. So we break them into 2 main groups. We have our little warriors. That's our 3 to 6 year olds, and so they work on their discipline and character and just general coordination, while also learning the same self-defense techniques that they're eventually going to learn in the junior program than in the adult program. So it builds into each other. And the junior program is 6 to 12, and that's the same as the balance. We're working on a little more advanced techniques than our little warriors would do, but still working on foundations and basics. And then from 12 and up, we really put them into our adult program. I very much believe that our teens are being faced with adult threats today, and so to put them in a class where they are on their, some schools will put just a teens only class, right? But the reality is that someone's going to defend themselves against an adult, right? Virginia and DC area is a surprising hotbed for human trafficking. And so if some girl being able to defend herself against it, it's not going to be against another teenager, right? It's going to be against some guy my size grabbing her and pulling her in. And Gene, I know you're a little on the short, on the smaller, more compact size,
It's a
right?
nice way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. But I want you to be able to kick my butt, right?
Mhm.
I like that's the goal, right? And then going into adult programs, we have our adult classes. Our oldest student is 73. So that's pretty awesome. He's an awesome go getter. He comes in with his wife every single class, like it's awesome. She watches him. It's the cutest thing ever. I love it, right? And he's just a go getter. So we have all the way up to that age, and Krav Maga is made to adjust itself around the limitations of people. I trained for about a year and a half of only one arm, going through because I had a shoulder injury.
Oh.
I just hurt my hip a couple of weeks ago, so I've kind of been teaching class with a cane just to help me recover a little bit quicker because I can't stand to be off the mat. Um, but but it builds it so that it can adapt to those things. And I have a couple students with some physical limitations, and we learn how to defend themselves, because just because you have a physical limitation doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to learn how to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then we go from there. Then we have all of our seminars. Once a month we have a women's self defense seminar. I know you've been to a couple of the ones that I've taught. Um, and then we do some kind of simulate a more specialty seminar, like a carjacking or a gun defense or knife defense or a home invasion. Few months ago, I taught one where you're learning how to get out of duct tape restraints and stuff if someone's for a abduction defense.
Oh.
So we have all those things that we have to offer.
Yeah, I actually pulled up the website and I was looking at the different programs and classes. I'm now looking at seminars. You mentioned carjacking, home invasion, active shooter response, mob
Yeah,
defense, third party defense. That's actually probably a very important one, knowing what to do to help somebody else that's in trouble, while, protecting yourself at the same time. Actually, instead of me talking about it when I don't know what I'm talking about, why don't you tell us about that seminar?
yeah. So third party. So I grew up learning a lot of lessons the wrong way. I solved a lot of my problems with violence when I was a kid, and that just got me into more and more and more in trouble, which is why I can relate really well for our students when they're struggling with that, and with parents who are struggling with that. But as I got bigger and stronger and learned a little more discipline through training, I realized that like, I don't want to hurt anybody. And so when it comes to defending myself, I have a very my line in the sand is pretty far back. Like you got to push me pretty far to the point where I feel like, you know what, it's go time. It's time for me to, pull that trigger or to go. But I just got recently married in April, so that's super exciting. But if someone were to threaten my wife,
Hmm.
right, or someone threatening one of our students' childs or something like that, right? That's a whole nother ball game, and learning how to defend that, where it's not you're no longer the one at risk. It's something that you care about more than yourself. There's a
Hmm.
whole nother level of stress that comes into that. There's more components to think about. You got to be thinking about other surroundings and things. So when we talk about active shooter, I'm talking about it's great if you take the guy down, but one, your responsibility is to your own safety. So maybe you are not the person to do that. Just because you take an active shooter seminar doesn't mean you're going to be Rambo and go in and save the day, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
it means that if you are in a situation where it's you or get shot, right, you have something to do. Um, but they also have to keep in mind bystanders and everything else. So we teach, we train with a lot of firearms in our school,
Oh.
and every class we go over firearm safety. Even though we're using plastic guns, I make sure that a gun is harmless. It takes a person to make a gun dangerous, either through maliciousness or
Hmm. Right.
negligence, right? So if we arm people with safety, then we help to make the community safer when also learning how to defend themselves from those. Because if someone holds a gun on me and I defend myself and I deflect that shot, right, and it shoots somebody else,
Hmm.
right? I mean, there are some terrible situations where that may be a horrible situation. That's the only thing you got. But like, what if it's my wife on the side? I mean, I much rather put myself a little more in that harm's way, even if it makes it a little bit more dangerous. But then how we work with those situations, it's a fascinating. I love teaching these classes because I encourage our students to ask questions, right? Challenge me, ask these questions, put yourself outside the box, because it puts you in a situation where like, how do you make a bad situation a little bit better,
Hmm.
and make it so that the whole goal is get home safely,
Hmm.
right? Not pump up your ego. Like, who cares about your ego? Like, if you need to pump your ego, go to the gym and watch yourself in the mirror or something, right? But when it comes to
Yeah.
safety, right, it's all about getting home and continuing your life safely, both legally
Hmm.
and physically.
Hmm. Yeah, there are the legal aspects, but there's also the real world common sense aspects as they're happening. Now, the legal aspects obviously are important, and I say that not just because I'm a lawyer, but you do need to know what you possibly risk, what the consequences are for certain actions. But so I guess what I would say is having that knowledge in addition to the practical knowledge that you provide at the studio would put somebody in the best possible situation to make the right decisions when they're forced to make a decision they never want to make, basically.
Absolutely. And the reality is that in those situations, your brain starts to shut down. It goes into survival mode. Your
Hmm.
rationale part of your brain, right? Some of you much smarter than me can explain this better, right? But you start to go into survival mode, and this is where you see these situations where people do something like that makes no sense why they did that, because they
Hmm.
were in a panicked mode. And so in crop training, we have stress inoculation. So we try and build up the stress in while we're training. And as we get into higher ranks, I might have something where someone attacks you, and then they start reaching into their waistband. Are they drawing a gun, or are they drawing their phone, or what? Like, what do you do? How do you make those decisions? They're very, very difficult to make, and especially in today's society. Yeah, I mean, just turn on the news and you see people who legitimately defend themselves, who still get arrested and go to jail, and even more scarily convicted for
Hmm.
simply defending themselves. Uh, and so, how do you make those decisions? And for me, it's I take a good count of what is important to you. What do I value? Right? I value continuing to be able to live my life and preserve myself. I very much value my fellow man, and I want to make sure that they are safe. I care about my community. I care about other people. I want to help them. All right, but I'm going to put my wife before everything else of that, right? And so I understand those decisions. So when it comes to making a stressful decision in something like that, I can I already have that stuff pre planned out. I'm not trying to jump and guess at an answer in the moment when my brain is not functioning at anything other than get the hell out of here and save
Mhm.
yourself kind of
Mhm.
mentality. And I've had lawyers come into the school and we talk about the legalities. Every single class, I talk about the ethical and the legal aspects of throwing a strike, right? We're not trying to hit someone for retribution or revenge. We are
Mhm.
only hitting someone because we need to defend ourselves. And
Mhm.
this is important on the other side. I had just the other night, I had a young girl. She's in our adult class. She's brand new. And she's so sweet. She doesn't want to hurt anyone. And so I'm trying to teach her how to hit. And she's like, well, why would I do this? Why would I hurt someone like this? And I'm like, trying to walk her through, I usually try to be pretty delicate when I first have a brand new student in this, but then as you get to know and develop a little bit of rapport, you can get a little more
Mhm.
graphic and real extreme
Mhm.
circumstances. And getting her to explain, like these aren't for some kid at school called you a name, right? And you go over and crack them in the face. That's the wrong thing to do, right? This is for someone's hurting. If they don't stop, you got to protect yourself, right?
Mhm.
For me, I
Mhm.
extrapolate that I got to protect the people I love, right? I got people that I'm responsible for. I spent years being a bouncer, and there, my responsibility wasn't just to make myself feel better and smashing this guy on the ground when he's getting unruly. My job was actually to protect him and the other patrons of the bar, right? So I had to figure out how to resolve a situation with the least amount of violence possible, but
Mhm.
still handle it. And the other person kind of can escalate that or de-escalate. And so when we go over de-escalation tactics and things like
Mhm.
that, that's just as important as being able to throw a good punch.
Yeah, I
But
was
you need
just
that
about
punch to work when it happens.
exactly. I was just about to ask about that. So do you also talk about what to do if certain situations arise, like say for example, it looks like a fight, you're at a bar with somebody and it looks like a fight's about to someone's about to, you know, go after you for whatever reason because they're drunk and they think that you did something. Do you talk about like ways to de-escalate a situation like that, and get I mean, that's just an example, but is that
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I've been in that situation a few times. I'm definitely guilty. Especially when I was younger, guilty of running my mouth a little too much. Right? I'd like to think I get a little bit wiser in my age. Right?
we
But
all get wiser in our age?
exactly right. So, yeah, talking about de-escalation, right? Me tell a student telling another student like, if you don't back down, I'm going to kick your butt or I'm going to hurt you or whatever. That that's not a de-escalation. That's an escalation. That brings
Mhm.
the intensity up, right? My fair thing I used to do, like, hey man, I can tell you're really upset, right? Like, is there anything I can do to calm this down, or let me buy you a beer, right? You okay? Like, we don't need to do this, right? And I teach my students about the mission. Your mission is to continue your life
Mhm.
as uninterrupted and as peacefully and successfully as possible. So take this take road rage, right? Say
Mhm.
you're in the parking lot and you go to park and someone takes your and you come in and take a spot and then someone gets in your face and they're like, you took my spot, you so and getting all upset, right? You say you could respond with, get the hell back and back off and know your place, or you can threaten them to try and get intimidate them to back down. Or what's the worst case scenario if you say, "Oh man, my bad. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Would you like me to move my car?" What's the worst case scenario? They ask you to move your car, you get in your car and you take another 10 minutes trying to find another spot, right? Versus this happened with my one of my dad's friends when he was growing up, long before I was even a thought for him. But same this exact situation happened, and the guy got stabbed in the heart with a screwdriver.
Oh my god.
I mean, like, you think like is 10 minutes worth avoiding even like a 1% risk of that kind of
Hmm.
escalation. In my mind, I think my ego is not that fragile that I can't sustain that hit. Where I'm like, you know what? I care about more about my family and everything. I'm gonna acquiesce, and it's not me. It's not being weak. It's recognizing and be like, why do I want to be in violence when I'm not going to be in it?
Hmm.
When I don't have to be, right? And so when we're teaching our students, we are in. What I teach them is this is the moment where you did not have an option. This is the moment where violence is the only option, right? And it's either you or them, and you're going to make it you. And that could be so much as you hit the person and you run, right? And that person's still standing, but they're phased or whatever. It could be you knock them unconscious. It could be you break their knee, and can go as far as you're gonna have to shoot someone, stab someone, or use some kind of lethal force, right? But where is that line? And for every single circumstance, that is such a subjective,
Hmm.
and you can't give someone a here's a recipe for it
Hmm.
that doesn't exist, right? Right. Me defending myself against a 6'6" muscle bound guy, right, is very, very different from you defending yourself against a 6'6" muscle bound guy, right? The amount of force that I would have to use is going to be much less than what you're going to have to
Hmm.
use, right? And you able to check that, and it's not so much you want to like, oh, I got a free reign
Yeah.
to go crazy on everybody. It's knowing like you don't want to be. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I'm going to protect what's important to me.
Hmm. Hmm. And you're right about the amount of violence for anyone out there that doesn't know, because we look the same size on the screen. I'm 4'10" and I don't weigh a lot. And Greg is much bigger than me. So I mean, what he said earlier about someone, my size being attacked, the way that I would need to respond for in order just to physically defend myself and to even be any sort of threat to the other person is much different than the way Greg would if somebody the same size is attacking him. I mean, it's just common sense. Like I I can't do what Greg would do and have that physically be effective unless maybe there are tips and tricks in Greg's class that I could learn. But my point is that he's right. There is no recipe because everybody's different, and the things that you need to do, it's based on your situation. It's based on what's happening right then and there, your size, the other person's size. So, but that also leads me to my question about the women's self defense classes and that girl that you said was, I don't want to use the word intimidated, but timid about, hurting anybody. So my question is, how, what can women expect to gain from coming to the women's self defense class practically, and how would you suggest that they get over that fear? Because 1 second of fear in a dangerous situation and you're done.
Absolutely, there are actually we have a reading list on our. I'm not sure if it's on our website, but right now lately I've been doing a book of the month and relating to Krav Maga training. There's so many good books on addressing that fear.
Okay.
So further education is I usually have about 5 or 6 books on my nightstand that I'm going through and reading, and as like there's so much knowledge out there. But as far as our women's self defense program, the probably chief thing among everything else is I want the women when they come into our class to feel that they have a safe place, that they have a safe place. When I teach most of I teach all of our women's self defense seminars, and I come out like I'm a guy. I'm a 6 foot guy, right? Who's been doing martial arts my entire life, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I have no idea what's ever going to be like to be a woman in this world, right? And to not be me, to not be and not see things through a male lens. So when I'm teaching these, I want to recognize that like I'm doing the best that I can to teach what I can and to bridge this gap. What I understand very well is violence. I understand violence very well, right? And I understand I used to be a very small person. Surprised, uh, like I hit like a crazy growth spurt when I was like 16 and just went like up. But when they come into the class, like I'm gonna be respectful of them, and that unfortunately the statistic is just depressing of how many women go through some kind of abuse and have done, whether it's verbal, physical, sexual, whatever.
Hmm.
And when we're teaching things, a lot of these women who want to get this help and learn how to defend themselves, they have this past trauma to get through.
Hmm.
And so I always start our seminars being like, if we go over something that's triggering, that's affecting you, the way you respond to it is 100% okay. If you need to take a seat, cool. If you need to go in the corner and cry, cool. If you need to leave and go home, fine. Whatever it is, I've dealt with all of them, right? And I've had women go outside and they're breaking down, and I go and I check in on them, like, hey, are you okay? Like, I just want to let you know I'm here. And do you want me to stay here and talk to you? I have assistants who can run the class inside and we can talk, or you need a minute. And I let them know that. And so they have that freedom to work through it in their own way. Right. Sometimes they get back on the class, sometimes on the mat, sometimes they end up just watching, sometimes they go home. That's all absolutely fine. And it's all part of the process. I'm not a therapist, right? So there's a lot more things that go into all that. But I try to build a safe environment for them to learn rough and unpleasant things as safely as possible. As far as what they're going to be learning, technique wise, I absolutely look at the women. I do the same thing with men, right? I do the same thing with kids, right? If this is what someone's attacking you, I look at this is how you're built. This is how you're maybe how tall you are, how strong you are, whatever that is. This is the ways I can help you work work in your situation, whatever that is. It's not a judgment thing. It's just like a
Hmm.
hey, like right. Like, Jen, if I were to tell you to punch me in the face and just knock me out and call it a day, that's a load of crap, right? Right. I need to learn how to do something a little more effective. Now you're taking out my knee, doing something like that. That's going to be a little more effective to you. But there's universal aspects that can be applied where learn how to use your body more effective, where you can learn how to use your body to make you stronger. Maybe not as strong as I am or as strong as someone else who's stronger, right? But make what you are working with stronger. The same techniques that I use to make myself stronger, right? So those are universal there, and we deal with different aspects of situations. I did one class a few months ago where we had them holding like a simulated baby, right? So like they're having to defend themselves while someone's trying to grab their child away from them, or trying to attack them with some or they have groceries, right? I keep on joking that we need to get some fake cell phones because half these half the kids in our school are like have their face in their cell phones and we're completely oblivious if something came around and tried to snatch them up, right?
Yeah.
And what do you do from there? So we try to make it very realistic, but also a very safe and encouraging place for them to go. And we got awesome women that show up regularly. We have a couple women on staff that are just great. Sharon's one of the owners. Kiara's one of our instructors. She teaches the little ones, and they're just it's really a godsend to have the women that we have at our school.
Well, let me ask you another question. Can women go to the other classes that aren't specifically women's self-defense?
Absolutely, I very much encourage it. Uh, I recognize like part of the reason why we have women self defense tomorrow is to be that step up, that launch pad into the main program because
Oh.
sometimes it's a little intimidating. We
Hmm.
got some big guys in class. We also have some small guys in class. We also have women in class. But it's very important. Like chances are for a woman's not going to really have to worry about defending herself with another woman on top of her, right? But a man on top of her doing things they shouldn't be, like that's what we got to be. That's what we got to work with. So you got to work with that. But at the same time, I check in with our women in our class, especially when they're new, right? I like, hey, are you okay working with a man? Would you rather work with a woman? Because we can keep having be in your comfort space, and then eventually, as they develop a little more rapport and a little more trust and a little hardiness or whatever they need, right? Um, I encourage them to work with men because men and women are just different. They're built different. They think different. They move different. Everything is different about men and women, and they really need to train with both of them. So.
Yeah. No, that is true. So I just wanted to mention a couple of the other seminars I saw on the list. We won't go through all of them. I absolutely want to have you on again. I'm thinking, this just a side note, I'm thinking about attending the women's self-defense seminar. It looks like the next one's on September 29th, but whenever that is, and maybe we can do a live like before that, or maybe when I'm actually there to go into more detail about that, because I think that's a really cool one. But I just want to go through this for anybody that's watching, so we don't just keep talking about women's self-defense. So there's a firearms bladed weapons defense seminar. There's youth, tweens, and teens anti-bullying. Sorry if you mentioned these before, but I wanted to go through them. College campus life self-defense, which I am sure is very different than it was when I was in college 20 years ago. My God. Schools and religious facilities defense. I think I went through everything, but there's so many different really interesting, I think they're interesting seminars. And then the programs, you mentioned all of those. I did want to quickly ask you, it says their private lessons are available. So can you tell everybody watching what a private lesson would look like and who that would be best for?
Well, yeah. So private lessons are, we have this wide gamut. So some of the seminars you listed, some of those seminars we do for charity. We do to give back to different organizations, and I trained in a lot of women's shelters back home. So dealing with women who post trauma, dealing with that, I just gave my time doing that, and so we have a very strong heart for supporting our community, more than just being like, oh, we're a community school, yay. No, but like actually getting involved. I make my black belts do a community service project, kind of like an Eagle project. But I make them, you guys got to figure out a community service project. You got to get out there, make a difference in the community, do something. And we work with a wounded warrior, not wounded warrior, wounded warrior project for them. But so that kind of can tie into the aspect of private lessons. We do corporate private lessons where we do corporations and businesses can access us and we can come in and teach. But as far as one-on-one, that's really it can be good for anybody. I think the best way to train is with groups where you train with multiple bodies and different things like that. But I have many students who need want a little extra attention, a little extra fine tuning of the details, or they're having a hard time getting something. I'll do private lessons, or my instructors will do private lessons with kids who are getting into trouble at school and need a little extra mentorship. So do things there. I've done private lessons. I do some private lessons with a couple of our police officer students, where I teach things slightly different from what I teach in the normal class, because unfortunately our law enforcement they are so hogtied by the restraints that they have to defend themselves, where if they do something wrong, the legal ramifications that they face are often far greater than a civilian, right? But they're often dealing with much, like I said, attacks on police officers are up 300% in Prince William County, right? And they're understaffed. It's crazy. So I'm working with them and I'm tailoring the techniques to make sure that they don't get in trouble while they're defending their life, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but that's the world we live in. And so it could be, hey, I want to work on defense. Maybe you can't fully commit to coming in a couple times a week and training. Our schedule we have a really, really awesome schedule, so many different options every single day, but sometimes it just still doesn't work. So private lessons is a way to go through that, and just contacting our school is a way to go about that.
I did post a link to the schedule of classes, and awesome. I'm also posting a link to the homepage of the website. Everything is very accessible. It didn't take me long to find anything at all. It's up at the top, the programs, the schedule of events, and how you can contact them. So if anybody has any questions, it's all right there, and I'm putting the links here. Well, is there anything else? I absolutely want to have you on again, Greg, and maybe we can do a specific topic, like I said, the women's self-defense or something else, or if there's something special you want to promote.
I could go on for hours about any of these topics.
I know. And
it's my life. I love it.
Yeah. And Greg is an awesome instructor. I've seen him in action, And he's right. There are a lot of class options. And I mean, there's something really, in my opinion, for anybody. If you don't want to do one particular program, you can check out these seminars, but I definitely suggest that you check out the programs. So is there, I just want to say before we leave, Greg, when I end the live broadcast, you and I will still be on here, but is there anything else you want to say to everybody before we go for today? And I promise you're going to come back on if you want to.
Yeah. No, I would absolutely love to be back on. And my main thing is just that we have a saying in our school: never, never, never delegate responsibility for your own safety. All right. You have men, women, kids, at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own safety. The world is not a fair place. Mm-hmm. And saying, well, that's not fair, I shouldn't have to do this, I shouldn't have to do that. The bad guys don't care about that. Mm-hmm. It's, at the end of the day, it's what you do to care about yourself, and then being ethical about it. Mm-hmm. And just ego is the biggest enemy that you could possibly run into. Thinking that you have this taken care of, that you're the top dog, that you're invincible and all that. I went through my growing pains with that myself. And the more I trained, the more I realized just how much threat there is out there. I've had people say that, tell my wife before we're getting married that, do you want to marry someone who's so paranoid all the time? And the difference is I'm not paranoid. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I feel confident. I'm empowered by it. Right. And I think that I'm not a father yet. I hope to be soon. But I've been teaching kids forever, and I've been a lot of father figures to a lot of them. I think there's a huge responsibility for good, strong men to be a reflection of that to the younger men of our generation. We have a lot of people who are soft and don't understand the value of hard work and the value of some grit. And Krav Maga, you're going to learn that. And at the end of the day, I would love for you guys come and train with us. That's great. But train somewhere, learn something. It's good for your health, right? It gets you flexibility, mobile, moving around. But if you love anything more than yourself, right? A husband, a wife, kids, something, it should be your responsibility to make sure that you can protect them on the day when the wolf comes knocking, and making sure that you can provide for that. And that's what the thing gets me up every morning and has me working hard.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a great way to end. And I love what you said, prepared, not paranoid. That's a fantastic way to describe it. Did you just think about that? Or do you say that all the time?
Oh, I say it all the time.
Oh.
I had to explain it to my, I won't get into throw them under the bus, but it came up. It came up. So yeah. But I 100% believe it. Right.
Well, I'm going to retitle this afterwards, Prepared, Not Paranoid.
Awesome. I love it.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Greg. I really, really appreciate your time, and I'll let everybody know when Greg's can fit into his schedule coming again, and we'll try to streamline it so we have something more specific next time, and we can do a whole series out of it because there's so much to talk about.
Oh, I could hit so many things. And it's always a pleasure talking with you. I love having you around. You're just always such an awesome energy. So I love it.
Oh, well, thank you. That makes me feel nice.
Good. It should.
There's more confidence boost.
There you go.
From the Krav Maga instructor. All right. Thank you everybody so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. Have a good day.
All righty. Bye.